Hello and welcome to this episode of Taxes and Disappointing Sex podcast. And today I have no idea what episode we're on now. I think it's like episode 7 or 8. And I'm very lucky and very happy to be joined by the one and only Cory Crowley today. And we've tried to
Hello.
record this episode before and it didn't happen and it didn't work and someone's life imploded. So we're doing it today instead. So, hello. Do you want to give the peeps a bit of an introduction to yourself, who you are and where you came from?
Well, my name's Cory. I am 28. I'm from Ireland, Cork to be specific, which nobody has heard of, but anyway. And I am an online coach, and I met you when we worked together for a little bit, the tail end of last year. And we've just been best friends since, basically.
I feel like you're best friends with everybody that you meet, though.
I do kind of have that effect on people. I don't know what it is. People just tend to like open up to me because I remember like one of the first Saturdays we worked together.
Shift. I remember the Saturday shift.
Yeah, it was just
we did next to no work and just sat and chatted for the entire day. We flicked around different spreadsheets because neither of us really had any jobs to do either.
Yeah, no, it was a pretty chill day. I think I had to like arrange address labels or something ridiculous, and that was about as far as my day went. But yeah, people just kind of tend to open up to me, which I find quite flattering and a little bit overwhelming sometimes because I'm like, wow, like it can be a bit. Yeah, exactly. But I feel like it's just the best way to be, isn't it?
Yeah,
like an open book.
Yeah. It probably helps you being a coach as well, though, if you are the kind of person that people do want to talk to and do want to open up to.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I guess all of the experiences and stuff that I've had, like, have led me to be more, like, empathetic and relatable and stuff, which helps me massively in my job. So it's great. And I wouldn't change it for the world.
I was super dubious of you when we first met. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I was really like she's too happy. I was like, no, I was in a really shit place when we met. So I was like, nobody is this happy and nobody is content with life, and I don't like it, and it's not right. And then I was like, oh wait, you actually can be happy about life.
Yeah.
What's Cory doing and how do I do it?
And I feel like I was in a pretty messed up place as well when I met you, but on the outside it probably looked like I had it all together, but I was just every day trying to make the best of a fairly shitty situation. So
yeah, I think everyone goes through that at some point though, when like they're hiding what's actually going on from the outside world and everyone's like, oh no, they're doing great, and it's like
on the inside you're dying.
Yeah, it's so fine. I even get it now to some extent. It's like, oh my god, you're killing it, and I'm like, I'm keeping myself busy with projects because otherwise I'll implode.
Exactly, and that's so necessary. Like, you just have to feel like you have a purpose, and like that could be something so trivial, like to like other people, but like even just getting up and making your bed every morning, I'm like, that makes me feel like I have something to do today, and like just taking care of yourself on a daily basis as well.
It's the reason I love having dogs, because like they depend on you, so it gives you a massive feeling of purpose.
Yeah, it's like that Ricky Gervais show. Have you seen Afterlife on
Netflix? Oh, it's so good. I cried so hard at that.
Oh, and like it's such dry humor, but it's so relevant. It's just like says it as it is, and it's like that dog was the only thing that kept him from killing himself, which is just crazy.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't want to. This is going to sound super dramatic. Like, it's like you and Catherine and Louis were probably the people that kept me going for quite a long time, and obviously James. But like, you just need those people that will bring you up, that will keep you on a level.
Exactly. And I think that like, especially when you're going through something so shit, like you just need to have those people that you can rely on all the time, that no matter what they're going through, they'll still be able to hold space for you and just be there and listen actively and not just listen to respond and be like, oh yeah, that's fine, that's happening to you, but this is so much worse, it's happening to me. And it's like, that's not helpful. Like, you don't need those friends.
Sometimes you don't even need a response from people, I don't think. I think you just need well, if you need to vent about it more, I'm here. Because I feel like people will vent to me and I'll be like, I don't know the answer. Like, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and like sometimes, like you have to be super careful that you don't advise people to do the wrong thing either. Like, you don't want to project what you do in that situation. Like, it's kind of like coaching people. Like, you have to coach them to reach their own conclusions.
Yeah. So if someone came to you and was like, this happened and then my dog died and like I'm a mess, and you didn't really know what the answer was, what would you respond to them?
I guess I just try and encourage them to reflect on it themselves. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing that, like, once you kind of take yourself out of something and then sit down and like just brain dump, it doesn't even have to be into a journal, like just on a piece of paper, or just get it out of your head, essentially, and then see it for what it is, and then you can work towards like moving forward. And like you said, like, you don't always have to have the answer, so you can just hold space for somebody, be like, I understand, like, well, you might not always understand, but like, I hear you, I see you, I feel for you.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, sometimes that's all people need.
I think sometimes as well, saying to people, like, just being super honest and going, I don't know what the right answer is, and this has hit me for six, and I don't know how to respond to it, but I can imagine like how much it hurts, or maybe I can't imagine how much it hurts, but I know it does.
Yeah.
And I'm here if you need.
Yeah, exactly.
I think people feel the need. Like,
yeah.
People feel the need to come up with an answer. It's like, no, they're just venting at you. Like, saying it out loud as well. Because I'd journaled and I'd written about so much stuff, and then people will learn more about my epic 4-hour therapy session that happened reasonably recently, and hopefully in due course. And saying it out loud as well was so therapeutic, and it just made it all seem so much more manageable. And telling other people just makes it easier.
Yeah, because once you say it out loud, it doesn't have much power over you anymore. Because it's out there, and it's like, oh, it's actually not that bad now.
Yeah. And while the things that you say might be horrifically bad, it's like it's not affecting you right now, which is how I kind of looked at it. And yeah, I'm going to launch in with some thoughts that I wrote down. So kind of building on that, I wrote down allowing yourself space to step back and evaluate. Have you done this? What's your experience with, like, if you're in a horrible situation, how do you give yourself that space that you need? Because sometimes when you're in it, you can't see it. I feel like you spoke about this on Ollie's podcast. Like, sometimes when you're in it, you can't see what's happening. How, like, where do you get that space from?
Well, it happened firstly when I had my little breakdown back in 2018, when I was working a job that, like, there was nothing that I could put my finger on in terms of like it being a really terrible thing, but I just knew that it wasn't suiting me. So it got to the point where one of the lads came into the office and I burst into tears and I couldn't explain why, and he was just like, oh my god, like, hormonal women, like, can't deal. And I realized that it was a little bit more than hormones, and I just needed to remove myself entirely from that situation. So I actually got signed off work for 2 weeks on stress leave.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I had to sit with myself for 2 weeks and figure out what the hell I was going to do, because it got to the point where I couldn't continue. Like, I couldn't ignore the fact that there was something wrong any longer. So for me, I have to literally retreat entirely, like, and basically put on headphones and blinkers and just like listen to me, which is hard. It's really, really hard to quieten down the noise from everyone else and like ignore everyone else's opinions and like what they think you should do. And it's a nightmare because everybody has one and they're all so different.
And there'll be people that don't have your best intentions at heart as well, offering their advice, and they'll get intermingled with all the, like, the good advice, and you sometimes can't separate it out.
Exactly, like, you can't see the wood for the trees, and like, you just need to completely retreat and just be with yourself for a while. And I feel like that's what Vietnam did for you as well, wasn't it?
There was I feel like there was 2 points. So the first one was, I don't think I've told anybody this, I spent a week in hospital with a kidney infection, and it was just before you guys started, and I had, like, it basically gave me a week off work, maybe even, like, I think I had a week in hospital and then a week at home, then went back to work and started doing half days because I was still in pieces from it. And they came to move me one night. I feel like it was like 2 a.m. and they came to move me wards because hospitals just work on this weird 24-hour kind of system. So they came to move me into a different ward, and the nurse wouldn't let them take me because I had a temperature of like 38 or I had 39 degrees temperature. Was like sweating and shaking, and like I was in so much pain and I was crying, and she was like, oh no, like, I know it hurts, and I was just like, no, I think I need to quit my job at like 2 a.m. and this poor nurse did not know what to do with this.
No.
So there was that, and then Vietnam as well was just 2 weeks away from it all, and no internet, like, or very limited internet, couldn't really talk to anybody apart from James. And that was amazing. But
Yeah.
I massively advocate that people take holidays when they get
100%.
stressed.
Like, and it takes changing your environment as well, because if you're stuck in the same motion, doing the same things, it's like nothing's going to change. And another thing is you cannot feel in a place that made you sick. So
you can't.
That is huge.
No matter how much you try.
Because...
Do you want to know... Sorry, Karen.
No, go on.
Because do you want to know another fun story about like bursting into tears and being told I was a hormonal woman?
Absolutely.
I burst into tears at a certain job and got told to come off my birth control because it's making me emotional.
What?
Yeah.
That's mental.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't. It's just like people will never accept responsibility for things, and it's like, oh no, it's this. This is what's wrong.
Yeah, you are a hormonal, emotional woman.
Yeah, it's your biology. Just accept it.
You're a psychopath. But if you start calling everyone a psychopath, you might need to reevaluate who is actually the psychopath. But that's a completely different issue that we're not going into. Because you went to Spain recently, didn't you?
I did, and it was amazing. It was so nice.
Was that one of those, like, I need to step back and change my environment type things?
Yeah, because there was a lot of stuff going on at home, and I just felt like with the whole lockdown thing, and like, you literally don't see anyone. So I was like, do you know what? If I'm going to be totally solitary here, I might as well be totally solitary in a hot country. So I'm really grateful and really blessed and really lucky that my parents have an apartment in Spain. So I just fecked off there. Cool. Yeah, I just fecked off for like 2.5 weeks, and I was working away online. So like, it's not like I had to sacrifice my income or anything because of it. So I just took that headspace because I feel like it's just, for me, being in a warm country is like everything.
Do you know what I mean by it removes that kind of stressor of being cold? Because you don't have to think about like shivering and being cold and being uncomfortable. And it just makes you so much more comfortable. Exactly. I'm such a summer baby.
Oh, like, it's insane. I just felt like I was in a completely different headspace, waking up every morning and seeing the sunshine. So that was just like another little retreat for myself.
Yeah, why not do it?
Yeah, exactly.
And you can with your business being online. You can just do it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So the next thing I had written down was trusting yourself to make the right decision. How do you know when you're doing it right? This is a big one, I think.
Oh, I don't think I've quite worked this one out yet, but it's taken a lot of trial and error.
Yeah. How do you know when something is right for you or not right for you?
I think you know by the way you feel.
Yeah.
And I think paying attention to like your body and like, just, do you know when you get that feeling in your stomach, those little butterflies, and you're like, oh, this is so exciting. Like, if you're kind of excited, nervous, scared, it's like, it's a combination of the three. I just feel like that's when I know I'm doing the right thing, or that it's the thing that I need to be doing in order to further my development.
And I think that's an important thing to notice, is like, scared is not a bad emotion and nervous is not a bad emotion.
No, it can be, obviously. But it's not always. I think it's just getting rid of that like fixed mindset around certain emotions and feelings. Just because it might be one way, like, it doesn't mean it's always that.
And doing hard things is scary. And if you want to do, like, the things that you might want to do might be difficult, and that's going to be terrifying. But you can be excited about something while being scared, and you just sort of have to work out which the most prevalent emotion is, I think.
Exactly. And like, being like, feel the fear and do it anyway, and like, life begins outside of your comfort zone, all those kind of things, they are true. But I think it, like, people always overestimate how much they need to be doing. Like, they'll like set a really unrealistic expectation on themselves, and then it just becomes way too hard, so they just don't do anything. And I think that that's one thing that you just need to be, is you need to be realistic.
Like, do you think that you can set like borderline unrealistic expectations as long as you have realistic intermediate points to get you to that unrealistic expectation?
Yes, 100%.
Good, because I do too.
Yeah, 100%. Like, you can have like this massive end goal, but there's going to be little micro goals in between. Because in order to keep your momentum going and keep your self-belief up and like your self-esteem, you need to be achieving something that's measurable to keep going.
No, I completely get that. It's like my goals of running ultra marathons and stuff. You can't go out and run 100 kilometers. You have to run like 10 and then 20 and then 30 and then 40 and then 50.
Yeah.
And it takes time to build up to those things. Have you set any of those like slightly unrealistic and really terrifying goals?
I have been kind of stagnant for a while in terms of goal setting, but I was actually speaking to Catherine about this a couple of days ago, and we were like, we need to sit down and like set proper goals again, because last year I had all these goals, and like looking back at my journals and stuff from last year, I achieved them all. So I was like, woo, go me. Like, yeah, it's really cool. Like, I feel like by having those, I was constantly maintaining my focus, and I had a why, which was very important. But now, since I think with this whole lockdown thing as well, everything's been kind of put on hold a little bit.
And people's goals have changed so much because they've sort of had to, because we can't do some of the things that we want to do. So
exactly. Like, I mean, I'm sure you had marathons planned for this year, which have all been, knowing you.
All of them everything got cancelled.
Exactly. So I feel like everybody's just been everyone's life's been put on hold this year, but it's fine. Hopefully we will get back eventually.
But I feel like you still achieved loads this year.
I guess
maybe not the things you expected.
Yeah, I feel like in terms of like personal development and like growth, I have achieved quite a lot, and I probably need to sit down and like revisit journals and stuff to actually see how far I've come. But I think that's the thing, when you get to like, when this becomes your new normal, you very rarely sit down and look back on what you've achieved. Like, you just as it is, and you never really recognize how far you've come. So that should be a little thing I do a little more often, I think.
It's almost like, you know, when people take progress photos of their, just segueing it back to nutrition in like the only thing that I know how to relate to. Like, when you look at your body in the mirror every day, you don't see those tiny changes, but you see them over time, and you see, like, if you take a picture at the beginning and then a picture 6 months later, you can see the change. But you can't necessarily see it happening. So you sort of just realize that this is your body, and you don't see it progressing or getting better or moving the direction you want it to.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that that's just a massive thing, is just reflection, isn't it? Just to see exactly how far you've come.
Yeah. Do you ever sit down and assess like your core values?
I did at the start of this year, because I felt when I was moving home, I needed to know why exactly I was doing what I was doing. And it was because I felt like freedom is one of my top values. Pretty much everything. And I felt like when I was living in the UK and when I was working in the job I was working, I had little to no freedom. So ultimately, when your ultimate like top priority values aren't being met, then that's going to lead to you being a pretty unhappy person. So that was one of the main driving factors for me moving home. So yeah, I have visited them quite recently. Yeah.
What else is high on your core values list?
Freedom, family, and the third one I have forgotten, because it changed very recently. I think honesty is a super, super important one. Like, just to know that the people in your life are going to be 110% honest with you at all times, because trust was a massive thing for me. Like, in the past, my trust was broken, and just going forward, I was like, I need to know that the people that are in my life are going to be 100% honest. So that's my third value, basically.
I think that's so huge. Like, can you tell us like how trust got broken?
So
or in like roundabout terms.
Yeah, basically, I was in a relationship. We ended up engaged, blah blah blah, and he was cheating on me the entire time. So, and it wasn't like, it was more kind of on an emotional level, which hurt probably more. So I think, like, cheating is twofold. Like, there's physical, like drunken one or whatever, all that silly stuff, and then there's like emotional level cheating, which I feel like is way worse.
Chronic.
Yeah, and like when you're depending on somebody else on an emotional level, when you're in a committed relationship, I think it's probably one of the most damaging things that you can do to your partner.
Yeah, 100%. Especially when you've told that person that they're the one that you want to spend the rest of your life with.
Exactly. Like, it was just nuts. So basically, he betrayed my trust, and anything that I told him in confidence was like used against me at a later point. And it was just, there was a lot of gaslighting, and there was a lot of like, how am I going to say? He was just a complete narcissist, really.
Yeah.
And I was never going to be enough for him, and that made me turn into a shell of a person, because the funny thing is as well is like, he spent 6 years trying to get with me, and then it was like I was just so confused because I was like, why would you waste this much time to
He
just,
just yeeted that all away as soon as
yeah,
he had it all.
exactly.
Weird, isn't it?
So bizarre, but it was all like the excitement was in the chase and stuff. And then I think once he like had a ring on my finger, he was like, "Oh, it's done now. Like I don't have to try anymore."
Mm.
And then the mask became too much for him to maintain. Like the persona that he was pretending to be, it just became too much for him. He ultimately like let his guard down, and his true colors came to the surface.
Oh my
Um,
God.
yeah, so that's why I have trust issues, basically. In a nutshell. And I convinced myself of all these things. And after that, I was like, oh, I can't choose the right person. Like, I have this 3-year curse because, like, everything just goes to shite after 3 years. And, like, all of these silly things that I tried to, like, convince myself that were a thing just so I could feel better about it.
Yeah. Did you did you like blame yourself for things that he'd done to you? Like, were you like, I'm definitely the problem in this?
100%. Yeah. Like, and you're made feel like that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
It's mad, isn't it?
yeah, it's horrible.
Because like deep down, and you'll tell other people this, you'll be like, it wasn't your fault, but you'll be like, but that was definitely my fault.
Yeah.
or like yours is different, mine is different.
Yeah. I think we're all like way too hard on ourselves though.
Yeah.
And like it's taken a lot of like sitting with myself and looking back on the relationship, and like I will 100% hold my hands up and say I probably wasn't the easiest person to deal with at that time because I was so miserable, but ultimately it's because I wasn't like satisfied by the relationship. I wasn't getting what I needed from it.
Mm.
Um
Do you think you
so
felt an element of guilt for that as well? Like you felt like you should be happier in that relationship because he loved you
yeah, yeah.
and
Oh,
that should
like
be enough.
exactly. And like you're told then that, every relationship has problems and like I'm doing my best, and like when they up and then it's like it's played down.
Mm.
So you think it's less than what it is. And it was a weird, weird time in my life. But the funny thing is like if you put me now in that situation, I'd be like, please.
See ya.
Yeah, exactly. But it came down to the mindset that I was in at that time. Like I was literally like a piece of Play-Doh in his hands, and I would have turned into anything he wanted me to be. So that's
Yeah.
mad.
Trying to please people.
Yeah. Forget about it.
Do you think you are scared of disappointing people, or are you less scared now than you used to be?
I'm less scared now,
Yeah.
but before that would have been one of my top things. Like if everyone else was happy, I would have been fine.
Yeah.
And that came from like my mom, I guess, because she would have always been like, I'll put myself on the back burner as long as you all are okay. Like that's all that matters. And I just think if you prioritize you, like your relationships are going to improve. You're going to be a happier person. Like everything gets better.
Yeah. What do you do? I guess you're not in a relationship at the moment, but what do you do to prioritize yourself now?
I just make sure that like I get the things I need. So like adequate sleep, good
Mm.
nutrition, exercise, time by myself, because I guess I'm not really a people pleaser, but I'm still like I love people and I love helping people.
You
But
like
like
making people happy.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. But I know now to prioritize me and make sure that my cup is full first. And like if I feel that my energy levels are low, or that like I can't even get myself out of bed because I have neglected my self care, like I'll have the confidence to be like, look, I really don't feel it. Like I can't make dinner, or I can't go for that walk or whatever. Like I'll have the confidence to be like, look, I'm sorry, I'm just not feeling it. Whereas before I would have just pushed through and been like, oh, it's fine. You've told them you're going to do X, Y, and Z, so you have to do it.
And you get to this point where you just implode because
Yeah,
you're not doing anything to take care of you.
exactly. And it's exhausting. Excuse me. And I feel like I used to resent people for like taking advantage before,
Yeah.
but I was allowing it.
Yeah.
So that was a huge learning thing for me as well. I was like, you're going to accept like what, like you set the standard for what you're going to tolerate.
Yeah. See
So
that interests me a lot because it's kind of like a boundary setting thing.
mhm.
Um, how do you like? So this is something I thought about a lot, and I kind of then feel really guilty and kind of really ashamed for the fact of like, but I let it happen. So that brings you right back down round to, and that makes me a bad person. How do you deal with that kind of feels of like, I let that happen to me.
Yeah, I just kind of think that like I did the best with what I knew at the time. And like I think everybody's just operating on that like pretense that like you will always try and do your best. It may not always be like the best solution, like permanent solution, but like you are using the tools that you have at that time. So yeah, it might have been a like fairly silly thing to do, or it might have been stupid, or you might have upset someone, but you were doing your best. And I think you just have to cut yourself some slack, because we're all just trying to get through this weird and wonderful game called life at the end of the day. So
I've definitely seen a quote somewhere that's like, don't beat yourself up for the things that you did when you were trying to just survive.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's what people tend to forget as well, that we're all just trying to get by.
Like those survival coping mechanisms can turn unhealthy, but at the time, that was what you needed. Like it got you through. I think, again, relating back to nutrition, because that's all I know. I see that a lot with binge eating, and people turn to binge eating because they're restricting their energy intake, or like they're so sad, and then that sort of, it keeps them going just about.
Yeah.
And then once they're like quote unquote recovered, they carry on with those binge behaviors, and then they're like, oh no, these are bad now. And it's like, no, at one point that was what you needed, and you adapted to that because you needed it, and now you don't need it, so we can work out how to give you something more constructive. But
exactly. And I suffered with, I'm not going to call it binge eating because it wasn't that bad, but when I was in the UK, because I was super lonely, I ate so much shite that I wouldn't have even considered eating. Like it was all like cakes and cookies and biscuits and chocolate and like all of those foods that just make you feel good.
Yeah.
At the moment, like at the time, but afterwards you're like,
foods.
Yeah, exactly. And I suffered with that big time. And I even saw a little bit of it happening when I was in Spain as well.
Yeah.
When I was there for like the 2.5 weeks or whatever, because I wasn't getting social interaction. So then I was trying to fill that void with cake.
Weird, isn't it? How, you automatically just kind of revert back to those behaviors. Do you now catch yourself doing it now, and you're like, no, I know what we're doing. We don't need this.
That's why I came home from Spain when I did, because like it was an open-ended holiday, but I was so isolated. I needed to come home and see people. I obviously couldn't see people for 2 weeks because I had to do this stupid isolation again. But
you were like geographically closer to people, like to your family.
Yeah. If it came to it and I was going to eat the entire world, I could have seen my mom through a window. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's weird how stress does different things to different people. Do you find that stress affects your body weight? Like, how does it affect body weight and things like that, or just like physical manifestations of stress?
Oh, my skin, big time. Jesus almighty.
I remember your skin when you were in the UK.
Wasn't it so bad? Like, it was just so
raw.
angry.
Yeah.
It was so sore, so angry. And like, I think when it comes to stress, I'm not a stress eater. If anything, I'll just not eat anything that's good for me. And then I'll just eat shite. Like, I'll just completely neglect everything when I'm stressed. Luckily, I don't get stressed very often. But it's my skin is the first thing always. It'll just like completely break out, and I'm like, all right, okay, this is happening again. We need to slow down.
I see now. Yeah, I think the more, and I don't think people realize that you have to practice those kind of things. Like, you have to practice noticing it. You won't just suddenly wake up and be able to deal with it. You're probably going to have to do it a few more times before you go, oh, okay, now I get it.
Yeah, you start to notice the patterns in your behavior, or like even your body language. You'll notice your shoulders are like more tense and stuff. And like, it takes a lot of self-awareness, I think, to identify those things.
Because you regularly put on your Insta story that thing of like, breathe, release your shoulders, and I'll be sat there like, I didn't realize I was so smushed up. And I'm like, Cory's telling me to release my shoulders.
Yeah, and like unclenching your jaw, because that's always like, and it's like, let it go.
Oh, that's me all the time, and I'll see that, and that's a really helpful reminder.
Yay!
All the time. So if you ever find yourself getting stressed, just watch Cory's stories. There's so much goodness in them.
I try.
So jumping back to the trust thing, how do you rebuild trust after it's been broken? Like, how do you rebuild trust in yourself? How do you rebuild trust in other people? Maybe start with like rebuilding trust in yourself.
When it came to rebuilding trust in myself, I just started to make little decisions that didn't have much of a consequence, and then like knowing that I was doing the right thing for me.
Yeah.
Because when I convinced myself that I couldn't like even with college, like I studied arts for a year, hated it, dropped out, went to Australia. So then I like had convinced myself went to find myself. I'd convinced myself like that I hated studying and I didn't like doing all these things, but like it's just kind of challenging your beliefs and like picking apart those things that you've told yourself. So I think that has been a massive thing in reestablishing trust in myself.
Yeah, like finding you probably were just studying the wrong things. Like you don't hate studying, you hated studying arts.
Yeah, exactly, which was awful. And like I had to pick 4 subjects. 2 of the 4 I didn't get because the classes were full. So like I was spending half of my time at uni doing subjects that I didn't even want to do in the first place. So I was just like, stop this.
I'm going to Australia. I love that that's where I feel like our generation, that's where our mind goes. It's like, am I going to go to Australia, Canada, or Japan? Which one?
Yeah.
I'll get Australia, yes. Warmer.
Yeah, and we never consider going to Europe, which is a little bit closer to home, but no, it's
no, we have to get as far away as possible.
Exactly, to run away from ourselves, and ultimately we're always there, which is
James could always tell whenever I was having like a massive meltdown because I'd send him like screenshots of Skyscanner, like this is how much flights to Canada
no way.
right now. I can afford these.
Let's go.
Do you want to come to Canada? And he's like, I can't really go to Canada. I was like, I'm going to Canada.
Okay, hon, bye.
Oh god. And then so giving yourself like wins, like just allowing yourself to win things and allowing yourself to make those decisions and be okay with the decisions that you make.
Exactly.
I found this because you haven't been in a relationship since you broke your engagement off, have you?
No, I'm seeing someone at the minute. Which we can talk about off camera.
Yes, we will,
but
sure. Let's just stop now and we can talk about it.
Episode over. But yeah, no, I haven't been in like a committed formal Facebook official relationship since. Yeah, and it's been the best time of my life because I haven't been answerable to anybody, and I think because the relationships I worked for were so controlling, I just needed that time by myself, and I didn't know who I was outside of a relationship either. I was always Cory, girlfriend / fiance or whatever of somebody. So like when someone was like, who are you? I was like, I'm so-and-so's girlfriend. And they'd be like, no, but who are you? I'd be like, I don't know.
I just told you I'm so-and-so's girlfriend.
Exactly.
What part of that didn't you understand?
Yeah. Do I need to write it down?
Yeah. I do worry sometimes because I ended my like 3.5, nearly 4-year relationship on very bad terms with my ex. That was a shit show that we'll get into at a later date. And I met James the same year. So I feel like I didn't have that long of being single. I maybe had like 6 months or so of being single before I met James. And I met James like almost by accident. We met on a dating app.
Oh, no way. It was Tinder, was it?
It was Hinge. And I accidentally set my radius to 100 miles by accident because I didn't realise that I had it set that wide. And yeah, James popped up and I was like, ooh, yes, pilot. Like that one. I want that one, please. And yeah, so I feel like I do sometimes worry that I haven't had that time of being single to kind of work on myself. But I suppose we spend a lot of time apart, so I'm really comfortable with being on my own.
Yeah, and I feel like James is a really solid person as well. Like he's been such an integral support system for you, and I think that like it's fine to like there's no predetermined length of time that you should spend by yourself. Like it's entirely subjective, and like James has just been amazing for you. So
yeah, I think I've said to him before, I was like, I was definitely not ready for a relationship, but I don't think you're ever ready.
No,
for anything, literally anything.
Never. And I've had this conversation with Siobhan as well, actually, and we were saying like, oh, like we value our freedom so much, and like, could I sacrifice that for someone else? And then like she was saying that she's so happy, like she wouldn't change anything in her life, but she often wonders, is she missing out on that extra level of happiness by being with somebody? So it's like it's a hard one to call. And then I was speaking to Lisa McFarland, you know, the relationship coach.
Oh yeah, the relationship coach. I know.
Yes, and she was saying that like she doesn't feel like she's never felt more free than when she's with Nigel, like her husband. So like I guess it just depends. Like if you're with the right person,
For the right
you're
reasons as well.
exactly, and like it's just this really beautiful relationship where you're both like nurturing and caring and supportive of each other.
Mm.
Then like I don't think you should spend any time on your own. If you found that, like, then happy days, crack on.
Yeah, go for it. I
Because that's
guess.
what everybody needs. Like at the end of the day, everybody needs somebody,
Mm.
you know?
This is something that James says all the time, like, because I freak out about big things. Like, so we've talked about moving in together. We're hopefully going to move in together soon. And I
Yeah.
was just like, and he came up and lived, me and him lived in the granny flat in my parents' garden over lockdown for like 6, 7 weeks, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
But before that, I was really freaking out because I was like, what if we hate each other afterwards? What if we don't get on? And he was just like, well, then we'll break up. And I was like, no, but we can't break up. And I was like, we're gonna have to live. He's like, we're gonna have to live together at some point. And I was like, ah. And he's like, well, we'll just break up if it doesn't work. And I was like, no, we can't. And he's like, well, what do you want? I don't know. But he's like the logical one in the
Yeah.
relationship, and he's super like, if it doesn't, like, it, like, we either spend the rest of our lives together or we're gonna break up. And
Yeah.
it's quite a logical way to look at it. It's like,
Yeah,
okay.
it's gonna go one of two ways at the end of the day. And like if say like you spend 10 years with someone and then you move in together in your 11th year and you, you realize you're just not compatible.
Yeah, it's
That's
probably a really bad use of the past 10 years of relationshiping.
exactly. And like no regrets and all of that. But still you could have spent that time with someone else and you
Yeah.
could be somewhere like further along the line in terms of a relationship with someone else. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
Everything's a lesson, but yeah, I think James is right.
He's good.
He's a good egg.
So how do you in I've lost the words. How do you regain trust in people? Because at the end of the day, like, you are in control of the decisions that you make, but you're
Mhm.
not in control of the decisions that other people make. So how do you regain trust in other people?
I think it's acknowledging that first of all, that like you are totally responsible for you and your actions and your behaviors,
Mm.
and you can only like you can't control people. And I think
Yeah.
once you accept that, that's fine. Like people will like we're intrinsically selfish beings.
Yeah.
Like we will always do what suits us best. And like there are a rare few people who will have the capacity to like hold your values as high as their own. But I think it's just like knowing that you have everything in yourself
Mm.
and knowing that like you don't need somebody else's validation in order to feel good about yourself. I think that then will encourage you to trust people, like to meet you halfway, if nothing else. Like if you're not always expecting everything from someone, not
Yeah.
going to be as disappointed. So kind of
Yeah.
like have low expectations. Like don't
Healthy
don't
skepticism.
yes, and like don't set yourself up to fail.
Yeah. I
You
think
know?
there's a really fine balance of like trusting people, like giving people the benefit of the doubt, like trusting
Mm,
people, whilst also being healthily skeptical of
yeah,
what they'll do. Not
yeah.
expecting them to disappoint you, but expecting that there's going to be things that don't align with you, maybe.
Exactly. And it's learning how to navigate those things, isn't it?
Yeah, and recognize them as well.
Mm-hmm.
What are
Yeah.
your like red flags or non-negotiables
In terms of like,
in relationships? Let's go with relationships.
okay, if I like, I think I'm really good at detecting now if somebody's being like authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if somebody won't allow me space to breathe,
Yeah.
I'm like, ugh, like, like straight away, I'm like, no, 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 this isn't gonna work. Like, I think if I ever do commit to another person, like fully again, they'll need to understand that, like, if I ask for space, which I had done in previous relationships, and it was met with why, which didn't sit very well with me
What's
at
wrong
all.
with me?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And made me run 10,000 miles the opposite direction. If somebody can't honor that, like, I need space to process things and that I am my own person, and like, if I want to go out with the girls, we'll say for lunch and not bring them, that like they need to accept that that's okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, it's just it's hard really to like pinpoint what my red flags would be, but that's one massive thing. Like if I ask for space and someone's like why or no, or something like panicky, I'm like, no, can't do it.
Yeah, I think that's a huge one. Even just like the space to do the self-care things that you know that you need to do, like train. That's a big one for James and I, is that sometimes he'll be like, do you mind? And he'll be a bit sheepish and he'll be like, do you mind if I come up like an hour later because I kind of want to go for a bike ride first? And I'm like, that's absolutely fine. And he's like, oh. Like, sorry, wait, I'll be dramatic. No, you can't. I'll be so upset.
Yeah, why are you going without me? But it's like, you know, on Instagram, when you see the couples who train together, stay together, it's like, shut up.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a thing.
Yeah.
Like, just because you don't gym together doesn't mean your relationship is any more or less than someone else's.
We train together to a point because he's like a 30-year-old male and I can't keep up with that a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's not realistic.
We can do my hard sessions, but like I can't do his difficult sessions.
Yeah, and like that's fine. I just think you just need to be allowed to be your own person in a relationship, and like to be able to come together then and share your happiness with somebody. Like I think you need to be happy in yourself first. That's one major component of a relationship.
Yeah, and just not try and please other people.
Yes, exactly. And just know your wants, know your likes, know what your values are, and then you can like come together with somebody and then build something incredible. And that's not to say that's the only way, but in my, like, if ever I was to settle down again, that's what I'd want. I'd want somebody to be totally good in themselves and know who they are as a person. Yeah. And then we can just be happy together and do fun things.
And just have their own goals and stuff like that and their own things that they want to work for. I think that's cool. Like two people that they might want different things, but like they don't have completely different values. Exactly.
And I think that like in my last relationships, I would have just gone with the flow and just like did all the things that they wanted to do. And now I'd have the confidence to be like, do you know what? No, I actually don't really want to do that. Like you crack on.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this and I'll see you later. And I think that's just a really healthy thing. And it comes down to boundaries again, doesn't it?
Do you find that having been in the kind of narcissistic situations that you found it difficult to make those small decisions? Because you're like, oh, but what if someone judges me for that? And it's like, it's literally an irrelevant decision that it doesn't impact anyone else. Like what flavour ice cream you're going to get.
Yeah, it does. Like, and I think that comes down to like the gaslighting that goes on in those kind of situations, because you just completely have no faith in yourself at the end of it. Because all of the things that you would have worried about or that would have upset you, you're told that didn't happen. Like, are you okay? Like, it's an awful thing to have experienced, but I'm really glad that I did in a weird way, because it's led me to where I am.
Yeah, or you get like you make a decision that you don't think is that like massive, and someone treats it like a really massive thing, and like, oh, I can't believe you do that, and it's like, I literally just said I wanted strawberry instead of chocolate.
Yeah, like I didn't realize there was going to be a repercussion. Like, I'm so sorry.
I didn't know you were judging me for this.
Yeah, I even remember like wanting to go to the gym when I was with that person, and like if I came back from the gym, well, say 15 minutes later than I said I would have been, like that I would have been home, it was like, how dare you? Who were you with? What were you doing? I was just like, dude, I'm trying to better myself to benefit you as well. Like, hello.
Look at this body.
Exactly. And it was just like, there was always that fear, I guess, and it came down to his insecurity that like I was just going to leave, which inevitably I did, but that's not the point.
Yeah. Do you think it makes it difficult to be vulnerable with other people?
Oh yes, so hard. Like I said in that podcast I did with Ali, like my wall is like massive.
You have to be able to jump very high.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's not even because like I'm afraid of being hurt anymore. It's just like having to build yourself up every single time is bloody exhausting. Yeah. It gets hard, and there's only so many times you can do it. So I think I'm just very selfish with my time and my energy now, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Do you think you ever go through periods like now when you are vulnerable, but not like vulnerable in the sense that you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable in the sense that like you're in a vulnerable situation? I don't know how to describe it any better than that.
Yeah, like I mean, I think we're all a little bit vulnerable at the minute because like everything's up in a heap and like we're all just trying to do our best. But like I think through social media I've been more voluntarily vulnerable.
Yeah.
And like by owning my story and stuff, and like speaking about the things that I would have been massively insecure about, like my skin or like stretch marks or something ridiculous. I think that that's me trying to be vulnerable, but in a very like controlled way. So I don't know whether that's I don't know whether you can really call that being vulnerable. Really?
I think you can. I think it's like being more open with people about what, like, the things that you struggle with.
Yeah, and I think that like I'm gonna try and speak more about like mental health and stuff, because I have been really fortunate in that like my mental health as a whole has been incredible. But mainly because I've like kept up my self-care. I've been very like self-aware. I've done the things that make me feel good, and I think like a lot of people don't realize that they have a lot more influence over it than they massively. And like even doing really small things like staying hydrated, eating good foods, like they're so simple, like in your day-to-day life, that will have a massive like positive impact on your mental health. So
can you identify those turning points in your life where it could have either gone to shit or gone really well?
Like that breakdown that I had was
good.
Like ridiculous. Like I could have just gone straight into the old victim mindset that like life is shit and everything bad happens to me and like I'm never going to be able to do what I want to do. But I was just like, I just got tired of my own nonsense, really. Do you know what I mean? I was like,
right.
Like this isn't working. Clearly, like these beliefs are not serving me at all. So I just had to challenge everything.
And even the things that you don't realize that you need to challenge, you just
exactly. And like that's been invaluable. But it's just a journey, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I think people expect themselves to be too perfect as well. You'll never be.
Yeah.
Life is this constant process of just adjusting and readjusting and going, that didn't work, cool, let's try something different.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to be realistic about what you can achieve in a day, in a month, in a year, whatever. Like you just have to be like, you have to work within your limits, so to speak. And that's not to say that they're not going to change over time, like the whole micro like goals along the way that will keep you going. But like you just have to maintain focus, keep your why in mind is huge.
Yeah,
like, you need to know what you're doing and why you're doing it.
And I think if that changes as well, you have to have the courage to change your mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Does it scare you that one day you might go, well, working online coaching isn't really what I want anymore, and then you'll make a different decision? Has that kind of occurred to you, and does that scare you?
A little bit. Like I have had moments where I'm like, oh, like if this doesn't work, what am I going to do then? But like if it happened in the past and I just like I figured it out.
You're still here.
Yeah, I am. Like I've had some really random jobs. Like I've worked in real estate. I worked in a food production company. Like I've done a load of different things. And thankfully I can say that like I did pretty well in all of them, so that I know that no matter what happens, I'll always be okay. Like even when I became certified as a PT and like started coaching and stuff, I was like, if I have to work in a cafe, supplement my income and do this for free, like I'll do it, because I just love working with people.
Yeah.
So like even if the coaching business does like fall by the wayside or whatever, like I know I'll always be okay, because I'll always just do what I need to do.
Yeah, I don't think people sometimes realize that I'm not a full-time in nutrition. I work with my parents part-time as well. And you just kind of have to, you do what you have to do. I made like no money for the first 3 months I was home.
Yeah, exactly. You were just earning your keep.
I was earning my keep. Like my parents weren't paying me because we were in like a freaking pandemic. And and now, I'm just about making more than I was at my nutrition, which is nice.
That's amazing.
But I think significantly more than I was on my nutrition, because those wages probably shouldn't say the word I was going to use.
But what was I going to say? Oh, my thoughts gone.
This happens to me all the time.
Nope. But basically, you'll just always do what you need to do.
Yeah.
Like we're resilient.
You will survive no matter what happens.
And there's always support.
Yeah, there is. You can always go home, is what I know. I realised.
You can always go home, and like there's no shame in asking for help.
Yeah.
Like,
oh God, I don't know where I'd be if I hadn't gone home.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was a thing that like didn't sit well with me for a while ago, when I was deciding what I should do when I was in Loughborough and stuff. But it just got to the point where like the pain of staying outweighed the fear of leaving, or like what people were going to say back home when I did come home. Because like, as much as I'm like, oh, I don't care what people think, it like the narrative is still there. Like you have to check yourself, but it still creeps up, like your inner critic being like, oh, everyone's going to judge you.
I'm so glad you just said that, because I think people think that like successful people don't have that, and they do. Yeah. And it's just knowing when it's lying to you and when to listen to it and when not to listen to it.
Exactly. Like knowing that you're not your thoughts. Like you have so many thoughts a day, and like a handful of them are true.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
You don't have to act on every single thought, just like you don't have to act on every single impulse.
I wish more people would understand that.
I know.
So when it comes to like assigning the fucks that you give, because you're quite like a give a fuck kind of person.
Yeah.
Like in a like a I don't care what other people think. Like obviously you do care what other people think, but like not about Cory things. And so how do you give less of a fuck while still giving a fuck about what's important to you?
I know my intentions are good. So that's how I kind of quantify where my fucks go.
Yeah.
Like if I put out something and it's like it's not well received or whatever, like obviously you're not going to please everyone. You're not put on this planet to please everyone. Not everyone's going to agree with you, but if you know that you're working from a place of like authenticity and that your message is a good one, and you know that you're a good person at a core level, it kind of makes you a little bit unfuckwithable.
Yes.
Which is a great way to be.
Word.
It's a great way to be. And like Mark Manson said, like, what's your favorite flavor shit sandwich? Like there's always going to be a negative. So you just have to accept what one you're willing to put up with.
Yes. Yeah, so, there are always, even when I made the decision to move home, I was like, this is not like the best decision that I could make, but it's a decision.
Exactly. It's something. It's moving forward. It's making
better.
a change. Yeah, exactly. It's not always going to be the best, but as long as it's better, you're doing well.
Because I think that happens to people as well. They get like paralysis by analysis and they're trying to find the optimal thing. It's like, stop looking and just do the first thing that you think you can do, you can achieve.
Exactly. And it like relating back to nutrition, like people will just automatically think they need to change their entire like life. All of their eating habits. They'll need to be eating organic freaking quinoa and all these things that they don't like just to progress towards their goal. And it's like, no, just do things like make little changes, manageable changes, and like just know that you're going to be getting better, like 1% better every day.
Eat more vegetables.
Yeah.
Like eat one more vegetable, and then next week you can eat 2 more vegetables, and it's like that's progress. Yeah. And if you're not sure which bit to start with, like should you start by eating more vegetables or drinking more water or sleeping more, just pick one.
Exactly. And like you get clients checking in and they're like, I've had such a terrible week, and it's like you're still here showing up for your check-in.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. Regardless of the fact that you had an absolute disaster of a week, you've still shown up, which is incredible. So like acknowledge that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to like chat, anything that's close to your heart that you want to chat about?
I just think mental health is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, I think, is it October's Mental Health Awareness Month?
I think it might be.
I don't know.
Maybe it was September.
I know it was recent, but I just think that people need to know that if you're struggling or if you're suffering, there is no shame in holding your hands up and being like, I'm not doing good. Like, and the people who care about you will come out of the woodwork and they will be there for you.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I just want to like try and destigmatize mental health as much as I can, because it's something that's very close to my heart because my mom suffers with it. So
yeah, I think like our generation talking about it just makes it so much easier for the next generation.
Yeah. Oh,
our parents' generation are awful at talking about it.
Yeah, because like my mom, I think hers stemmed from having postnatal depression. So then me being the firstborn, I always felt guilty because of it. Because obviously, if it wasn't for me, it wouldn't have happened. But like,
I caused that.
Exactly, and that was something that was really hard for me to come to terms with. But like, she won't do it. So I'm like, it's my life's mission to be like, depression is normal. It's absolutely fine. Like, it's the smoke to the fire that tells you need to change something. So like, be grateful for it. And it's just like reframing it in a way.
Oh, that's an interesting thing that you just mentioned was gratitude. How do you feel about forcing gratitude? And like, so there's a lot of noise on the internet at the minute about like, you should be grateful for what you have. And we've been in situations that we were not grateful for. How do you navigate this? But we were being told that we should be grateful for it because it was an amazing opportunity, and it was like, and I feel like, I don't know if you said this in Ollie's or like, did you say like 10 minutes ago that your nan was really disappointed when you broke off your engagement?
Oh yeah, that was an Ollie's podcast, yeah.
Because like, you should be grateful that he wants to marry you, and just stuff like that. Like, how do you deal with finding things to be grateful for without like going, I am grateful for this amazing opportunity, when actually this amazing opportunity is giving you mental health issues?
Yeah, like gratitude's a funny one because like everybody's like, oh, you should be grateful for this, that, and the other, but it's like everything's twofold.
Yeah.
So like somebody else's perception of something that you should be grateful for might not necessarily be a thing that you are grateful for, and that's okay. Like that relationship that I was in was detrimental to my mental health, and my nana was still like, you should have been grateful.
Yeah.
Like that's just crazy because I guess it comes down to what I was projecting as well too. So like if I was putting up the front that like everything was fine, and then ultimately the inevitable happened and it fell to shit because I wasn't happy, like that's kind of on me, because I would have projected my happiness irregardless of the fact that I was miserable. So
God, you're
like,
so self-aware.
yeah, so like it's a funny one. Like I tend to try and keep my gratitude like list to things that are like my house. Ollie interestingly said that like he wouldn't have said like he's grateful for his house and he's grateful for his car. It's like more like he's grateful for his health and all those kind of things. So I think as long as you are being authentic,
like what you're grateful for.
Yeah, if you wake up in the morning and you're like, I actually can't think of anything to be grateful for, grand. Like just try again tomorrow. Like it's not going to have any negative implication.
Yeah.
You know, like that. I think forcing anything is a bad thing.
I genuinely thought I was broken when, like, towards the back end of last year, and I was like, well, this is me, and I'm never going to be happy.
Yeah, and it comes down to being, when you're in something, like you can't see a way out because it's like it just clouds everything, and you, again, like paralysis by analysis, you just think that everything's too hard, so you just do nothing.
Yeah, like if this is life, I don't want it.
Yeah, exactly. And like I've had those thoughts as well, like previously. Thankfully, my headspace it's like being inside my head is a much nicer place than it was before.
Oh, definitely.
But like I would have had probably within the last 2 years just questioning like, what am I even doing? Like why am I even here? Like what is the point? And I know that does sound quite morbid, but like it's normal to like question your existence from time to time, because like
I've definitely done that a lot.
Yeah, like, and I think that everybody does, but no one will be like I've really struggled to find a reason for my life at times, you know, and I don't think there's any shame in saying that.
Yeah, I think it is kind of the shame that we need to dissipate around these topics, because people do feel ashamed of going, I don't know what the point is. And I've definitely told counsellors, like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I want to be here anymore. And they're like, no, you are. Like, one that I didn't get on with particularly well because he was just too like, you will be fine. And it was like, I'm not fine now, am I?
Yeah, and it's trying to get past that initial block.
Yeah.
Like, and know that you are important and you are worthy and you are loved, but when you're in it, it's hard. And for someone to be like, oh, just be happier, just cheer up, it's like, that's not helpful. Stop.
My mum's like infamous phrase, have you died just thinking happier thoughts? Oh damn, mum, I hadn't thought of that. Now I'm fixed. Thanks,
Thank
mother.
you. Yeah, and like there has been times like in the past where I've been like, it would just be so much easier if I wasn't here. Or like if you think that like it would be easier for other people if I wasn't around, or
I've definitely said that before.
Yeah, and like I mean, you look at me now and you're like, oh, like she's super positive, she's super happy all the time, but like I have thought those things, I have felt those feels. So
you've almost like cultivated this lifestyle that you can be happy with. And you've given yourself this purpose. I think that's something that when you're stuck in the moment, you find it really hard to find yourself a new purpose, because you're like, I'm worthless, no one wants me, like there's no point.
Yeah.
Everything again, that like, what's the word, the self-fulfilling prophecy type thing of like, nobody wants me and I'm useless, and therefore I will always be useless and no one will want me.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah. It's like confirmation bias, but in a really shit way towards yourself.
And the negative self-talk, I do this with clients all the time. I'm like, just stop saying horrible things about yourself. And it's really hard. But I think this is another thing that kept me going. Like, I'd look in the mirror and be like, you're doing all right. Like, go for a run and you'll be fine.
Yeah,
You just have to find those little wins.
Yeah, and you have to have those little pep talks with yourself. Like, the amount of times I've caught myself, like, talking to myself over the past few years is nuts. Like, it's crazy. And sometimes I'm like, oh, shit, like, is anybody around? But I haven't been caught so far. But you do. Like, sometimes you do have to sit down and have a stern talking with yourself and be like, come on. Like, you can do this. Like, I even have these reminders on my phone that come up, like, intermittently throughout the day. So, like, my first one is, like, you can do this at 9 o'clock. And then there's other ones I can't even remember now off the top of my head. But, like, it's just those little things to keep you going.
Yeah.
And like, if they make you a happier human, then go for it. Like, who gives a shit what anybody thinks?
I think it's important to recognize as well that sometimes those are sticking plasters and you can't rely on those. You can use them to keep you on a level while you take some action, but you probably do need to take some action if you are relying on those tiny things to keep you afloat.
Exactly. You need to root cause, but those little things that will keep you going are very necessary.
Yeah, for sure.
And like you said, reframing your language is huge. Like, the clients, like, oh my God, they're so sick of me being like, stop being like, I only managed to do one workout. I'm like, you did one workout, well done. Like, stop putting yourself down all the time.
A good one that I found was stop saying I'm just doing this, because it makes it sound like you're like apologizing and you shouldn't be doing it. It's like, hi, I'm sending you this email because I wrote a friggin' awesome book. Like, oh, I just don't want to bother you, but like, I wrote this book and I'm just wondering if you could just take a quick look at it. Like, get rid of the justs from your sentences when you write, because you're like minimizing what you've done.
Exactly, you're playing it down, and you should know your worth. Like, it all comes from knowing your worth and knowing your importance, and like being self-assured enough to be like, I'm a badass and I wrote a book, so I want you to pay attention to it, please.
Yes,
because it's going to benefit you.
I was thinking about this today, and I was like, so my dad is in horticulture, and he gets reps from Holland, which is where like the big horticultural centre of the world is. Like, ringing him and being like, Andrew, I want you to buy these things from me, and he'll sometimes be like, nah, and then sometimes he'll be like, oh yeah, like what have you got? That sounds good. Tell me more about it. But like the confidence with which salespeople will ring people and go like, I've got this amazing thing for you, and I think more people need the confidence of salespeople who don't really know what they're actually selling.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, like, imagine if we all had that blinding self-belief
of the EDF energy guy in Morrison's. Like, imagine if we all had that.
Unstoppable.
Oh god. So that's probably quite a nice place to sort of bring it to a close. Where can people find you if they want to find more about you?
You can find me on Instagram, and my handle is Coco_Riri, which is very original. But yeah, you can find me on Instagram. I'm often sharing Charlotte's things, and she's often sharing mine. So no doubt you'll see her on my stories or you on mine. So yeah.
And where can they apply for coaching with you if they want to do that?
So if you just inquire through Instagram, and then if it depends what you're looking to achieve. But yeah, Instagram is probably the best channel for pretty much everything. So we'll keep it simple.
I agree.
It's just so much easier, isn't it? Like, just
yes.
Instagram me, it's fine.
Just DM me.
Yeah.
I will send you the link.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh god. Right. In that case, I will hit stop recording, and thank you so much for this time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.